Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Miami Film Festival Gems Q&A for We Don't Deserve Dogs. We are so excited to be joined by the film's director and producer, Matthew Salleh and Rose Tucker. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, good to be with you.
Of course. This film is just such a beautiful odyssey across our planet. It really tries to answer one question: what did we do to deserve the unconditional love that dogs provide? For people that love to travel, for people that love dogs, this is like the movie for them. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came up with the concept for this film?
Well, we love to tell stories about things that might seem really commonplace and simple, but occur all around the world. So our previous film was called Barbecue, and it was about barbecue culture all around the world. And it was during that shoot that we just noticed everywhere we went, there was always a dog. They're just always a part of people's lives. So it just seemed like a logical next film for us. Plus, we love dogs, always have loved dogs.
Yeah, and there's something very special about them that seems to evoke so much, I guess, rich storytelling material. You know, I always love when a subject of a documentary sort of makes people light up and really get excited talking about it. And I think that was one of the really lovely things about the subject for the film, yeah.
And do you guys have dogs, and did this change your perception of them?
Oh, the funniest thing is we don't have a dog at the moment because we live in this tiny New York apartment and we're not allowed to have one.
And with all the travel we do as well, I think it would be a bit mean on a dog to be gone all the time. So,
but both of us grew up with dogs. So we're originally from Australia, and my family always had Labradors. We always had like 2 dogs, grew up with them my entire life, and I hate not having a dog now.
I know. Well, you guys get to travel, and I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you next. I mean, one of the best things about this documentary is it really gives you the sensation of like you're traveling the world. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the countries you visited and why you chose those specific locations?
Sure. Well, we wanted it to be as sort of geographically broad as possible. So looking at people in totally different parts of the world, different cultures, different landscapes, all of that. We wanted to showcase areas where people might not think about how people interact with dogs. A good example is in the Middle East, where a lot of Muslim countries, traditionally, it's not really accepted to keep a dog as a pet. So it's sort of against religion there. So we definitely wanted to capture a story there. So we filmed in Pakistan for that. We just basically wanted to keep it really, really broad. And I must say we're incredibly lucky that we finished shooting it when we did, which was at the end of last year, because if we were halfway through shooting it and the pandemic hit, we wouldn't have a movie. So
yeah, and I think another interesting point is that we're a very small independent production company. So Rosie and I are actually partners in real life. It's just the 2 of us. And so we are able to have a little bit of flexibility of if someone tells us about an amazing story, we can sort of like, go down and film it. It's not this giant film production that has to be planned years and years in advance. So we try to always keep that sort of almost gonzo style sort of flexibility so that we can just sort of chase down a story. I remember when we were filming with the Romanian shepherds, and we had organized everything to go out into the countryside and film with them. And then they said, oh no, we're not moving the sheep for another week. And we're like, oh, okay. I guess we'll just sit around and wait. And it was like, well, yeah, it was like $20 for the Airbnb a night for an extra week, and we were able to do it. So that flexibility, I think, allows us to be able to really intimately involve ourselves in people's lives. And yeah.
Yes, that's one of the things I was most curious about when I watched this was how you track down the individual subjects, the different people and these stories, because I mean, so many people in the world have different dog stories, but you track down these really fascinating ones. So how did you ever learn about those stories and then go about forming a relationship with the subject?
Yeah, it's interesting. The process is very like you said, there's almost too many stories. Like, how do you start with? But we started with just some broad research, internet-based research, reading about all these different possible relationships people have with dogs. So we learned about Kukur Tihar, which is the day of dog worship in Nepal and things like that. And then we would just work with local, what we'd call fixers or researchers. And that was a really wide gamut of people, some journalists, some film students, other filmmakers.
Basically, we'd find somebody who lived in the area that we were interested in filming in, and we would just talk to them as a starting point and go, hey, we've read about this is this actually a thing? A good example is the story of Chino in Santiago. So we had read about the street dogs there and how people actually love them and look after them and care for them. And we spoke to a woman down there who actually runs street tours. So she's constantly walking the streets of Santiago doing tours. And we thought, well, she'll be a great person to know what's actually happening on the ground. And as soon as we spoke to her, she said, oh, I already know, there's 5 quiltros in my neighborhood, and this is like the perfect project. I would love to work on this. So definitely teaming up with the right people on the ground in each place is the starting point.
Just people really involved in their community and just, aware of really passionate stories around them. Yeah, it's always, I think we got really lucky on this film. A lot of really, really cool people that we got to work with.
Yeah, and Chino was one of the most memorable segments for me, and I think a lot of viewers. Did you guys have a particular favorite segment, or?
It's hard. Like, we love them all, but like Chino, we're obviously very fond of Chino. That one stands out as he's just a great dog, really. And I'm very, very attached to Major, the bull terrier from Scotland, who appears towards the end of the film as another one that's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I think for us, as being Australians as well, living in America, going to England, where the pub culture is a bit more like it is in Australia, we were, really, and, of course, when we went over there, we spent about a month traveling to about 100 different pubs until we came across this one in the middle of nowhere. We said, oh, we're making a film about dogs. And they're like, oh, you want to meet this guy and this guy and this guy. So like the whole town sort of ended up.
Next thing you know, the whole town brought their dogs to the pub.
So yeah, that was one of those beautiful characters. Just they evolved so naturally that there had to be something special about them, I think, which is.
And were there any segments or any things that you wanted to include but didn't have the opportunity to?
Well, we could have kept filming forever.
Yeah.
Like it was sort of hard determining when to draw the line and go, all right, well, we have enough. In an ideal world, we would have loved to have, done a story in Australia or filmed something in the US, but we decided to really keep it on the international sort of stories that people might find more unexpected. Sort of everyone knows what it's like to have a dog in America or in Australia, so we wanted to sort of, push it a little bit and into those more interesting, different areas.
Yeah. So what was the thing you most wanted to achieve with this documentary? And did you have like a big takeaway when you kind of saw the final edit on like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sort of what you said at the start, just that posing that question of, we're looking at dogs a lot in this film, but we were very fascinated about the way dogs look at the human beings as a species of people. And I think, humans have the capacity for both good and bad. That's why we included that section in Uganda with the former child soldiers. I think what some of those former child soldiers went through is probably one of the worst things that human beings can do to each other, training up a child soldier to be a murderer. And so that's an example of like the worst of humankind. And then just, there's this old saying that like, be the kind of person that your dog thinks you are. And, so we were sort of trying to just like look at it through that and sort of be able to find that light and shade and sort of that big takeaway for us is like, yes, I think that, you get bad things in the news every day, but we found all of these people, random people around the world that, were able to express the best of humanity through their relationships with their dogs. And I think that was for me the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, it's definitely a hopeful outlook rather than, we're not, the title "We Don't Deserve Dogs" sort of has a negative connotation in some ways, but it's not actually what we discover.
Yeah. And do you guys have any plans for a next project?
It's a little tricky, not going to lie, it's been a tricky year for all independent filmmakers, but particularly for people like us who like to tell big international globe-trotting stories. So we're in a recovery mode at the moment, just trying to survive financially. But, eventually we'd love to tell another big story. Maybe we'll confine it to just, the States of America or something like that.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. And we're so excited to be showing We Don't Deserve Dogs at GEMS. People are going to love it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Have a great day.